Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as we look at the first 2 years of WNBA cards which were made by Pinnacle. These sets were a very unusual set in that this was the inauguration of a league, and it was a league that was a long time coming. It's not the first professional women's league. There were actually a number of leagues that had already existed at the time and continued to exist during this time. So a lot of the women who entered into this league, they weren't rookies in the traditional fashion that we're used to, and some of the athletes continued to play in other leagues and then joined the WNBA years later. So this very first inaugural year was a really strange set in terms of the fact that it was super high caliber players, but none of them were rookies, and yet they were all rookies at the same time. So the reason for all the hype, which led to a major manufacturer making this set, comes from the origins of the WNBA. In the 1992 Barcelona Olympics, everybody talked about the Dream Team because this was the time when the greatest male athletes in basketball were coming together to play for an Olympic gold, which was a really fascinating concept. 6 years later, the story wasn't as great because the caliber of players had shifted a little bit. Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, they weren't playing in the second Olympics. So while everybody was excited about the team, it didn't have the same fervor, and it didn't dominate the Olympics. So it gave us an opportunity to actually notice other things that were going on. And the star power of Sheryl Swoopes was an unusual addition to the women's basketball team. And so people really started to notice the women's team alongside the men. And it really energized sports enthusiasts and created an upswell of optimism to have a major women's basketball league. Basically one on par with the NBA. So the NBA finally started to cater actually creating a women's league, and it needed that 96 women's team in order to create the foundation to be able to make a sustainable and marketable team, because these teams are expensive and you got to be able to make enough money to be able to justify the rental of the arenas, travel, all of that stuff. So finally they had this opportunity, and by 1997 we had a league, and it was a very quick creation. That means that girls in 1995 didn't have any major prospects for professional basketball, but by 1997, they really did. So it was a really exciting time, and people got fired up about this new league, not because they thought that it would compete at the same level as the men, but just the fact that now we were all really engaged in the prospect of it. So now with a new league, we were going to have a card set, obviously. And so what company would end up winning the bid on that? And the company that won the bid, ironically, was Pinnacle. Now, Pinnacle was a card brand that started in baseball, and then it had joined football, and it had joined hockey. So it was in 3 sports, but Score Pinnacle never got into basketball. So this was their gateway into basketball, but not directly into the NBA. And it was a strange time for them because they were on their last legs. I don't know if they knew it at the time, but within a year they would file for bankruptcy. So it was kind of poor timing for them. They jumped in, they grabbed the contract, and I'm glad that they did because they made really, really great cards. Now, first off, in all 3 of the other sports, Pinnacle had developed a fun little off-brand which was called Pinnacle Inside, and these were cards in a can. They were literally a can with cards in it. And this is the kind of thing that really only could happen in the 90s and really make sense. It was a fun gimmick, a fun idea. The cans are collectible, the cards are collectible. But the problem with cards in a can is that once you've opened the pack, what do? And so there are a lot of recycled cans from getting all these packs open. But they were a fun little gimmick idea, and so Pinnacle decided why not do that for the WNBA. So for the WNBA, they had their cans with player cards on the front. There were 8 teams in the league at the time, so they made 2 cans for each team. That's 16 cans, and they also made a can just for the league itself with all the team logos on the can as well. So every team could collect 2 cans for their team and then collect the WNBA or collect the entire collection of 17 cans. And it's preferable at this point, as we've gone this far down the road, that cans don't get opened. But if you are going to open them, open the bottom, because that means that the top actually looks like it's supposed to look, and it doesn't look really cheesy when you've got an open can that you're just kind of storing. So this was the idea that they went with. They decided if they were going to make a new set, they wanted to have something that really jumped off the page, and this was a really cool idea. The cards were a lot of fun to collect. It just kind of heightened it. And thankfully they didn't do it in a second year, so they only did it for the first year. So inside the can, they had a pack of cards, and they were in a cellophane wrapper, and you open it up and you get the cards and you get one filler card. And the filler card had an advertisement for a Pinnacle display case for the cans, which I'd really like to have, but I obviously never got one. And it also, on the other side, had trivia questions. And so there's a whole set of these trivia questions, but they did not number them. Playoff had done this with Prestige, where they did have trivia questions, not with an advertisement, and they numbered them. So it was nice, you could actually know what the set was. In this case, it's a whole bunch of different trivia questions, and I don't know that anybody's ever put together a checklist of it. I'd like to know a checklist because I'd like to know what I'm missing from it. But those trivia questions are actually a fun thing to collect along the side. So all that aside, let's talk about the cards. So the cards were player cards, randomly assorted throughout, showing all of these players. And again, there are no rookie cards in the set because they're all rookie cards. So there was no draft. It was basically what you did on the playground, where you had a whole bunch of kids and you just chose them all the way through, from the best player to the last player and then me afterwards. And you put together your teams and you went and played. So everybody here is basically their rookie card. The cards are really well designed. There is a very deep, rich color treatment on these cards. It's a 1/4 bleed with 3/4 border, colors, white, fade between the two, and the deep, rich colors along with the nature of the basketball shots make these cards read really well. And Pinnacle was smart enough to wait until the players were in their jerseys in action shots. So this set doesn't look like some perspective, yes, somewhere down the road we're going to have a league. It looked like the league already existed, like it was really entrenched. So that meant that as you collected these cards, these inaugural cards, you felt like this league had integrity. And that was a brilliant move that they made. It really helped you out. Ironically, when you turn the card over, what you don't have on the back are league statistics, because there were none. Most of these women had already been competing in other leagues, but those statistics don't count. So instead, they filled the back of the cards with little accolades about their careers, their college careers, USA teams that they had played on, things of that nature. So the card fronts look great. The backs just don't really give anything to you, but that's because this is the starting point. This is the beginning. This is the foundation. And these cards look great for that purpose. The set also has two parallels. It has the court collection and it has the executive collection. The court collection is basically the regular cards, but they have a foil treatment on the front. Now, the base cards have some silver foil on the cards for logos. And so when they get to the court collection, they change that silver to a bronze. So the card surface itself is like a silver foil, but the metal foil color turns to a bronze. And on the back of the cards, the original cards had a silver treatment behind all the text. This had a bronze treatment on the back. And then the executive collection replaces all of the silver or bronze with gold. But also with the executive collection cards, they had kind of an etched surface with a rainbow holofoil effect on it. These are really, really cool. The player is still a normal glossy shot, but the whole rest of the card is a very vibrant texture from all of this, and it's not overpowering. So this is a card that doesn't take over. This is a well-balanced creation, and these cards are really impressive. The set also had two subsets, and the first subset was scoops. And this is basically an opportunity for the stars of each team to say something personal on the card back. The other set was Style and Grace, and this is a portrait shot of the star player of each team, and right up on the back. These cards are gorgeous. These cards are probably the best cards, possibly the best WNBA cards across the board in all sets. They're really, really magnificent creations. They're portraits, so they really got the opportunity to do something great. But putting that simple color treatment right down the middle, I thought was a fantastic move. And being part of the set, they have the parallels. And they closed the set out with two checklists, which likewise also had the two parallels. The set came with two insert sets. The first one was team development, and this was not the star of the team, but kind of the second tier player. And the cards are foil. All of the insert cards for Pinnacle are foil, both years. This card's a foil card with a kind of a raspberry colored foil treatment for the logo, things of that nature. They're neat cards, but they're kind of boring cards. They're okay. And then they had the My Town cards. And these cards, on the other hand, are really cool. They are horizontal cards, and it is not just foil, but it has kind of an etched quality on it as well. And it has the star of each team, and then behind it has like the arena or some stylized shot of a city. And these cards are basically kind of staking claim to the team and the city and tying them together in a very personal way that I think really fits well with this particular league, because this league was intended to be kind of a grassroots hands-on kind of an affair, where the NBA is this ethereal level, and this was kind of like your backyard. Almost like a high school team, the way that you have a connection with a high school team versus the global or nationwide specter of a professional team. So the WNBA kind of had that feeling, and that's kind of what these cards had. Ironically, for the Monarchs, they have Arco Arena behind them, and that wasn't even the stadium they played in, which I get a kick out of. Pinnacle didn't do all their homework, but I'm not sure what other shot really would have worked for Sacramento. For 1998, like I said, they went away from the cans, and thank goodness for that. So it was just straightforward packs. So everything worked in the proper way. The card design was a major step down from the previous year, which is kind of to be expected. This card was getting more into a traditional 90s approach. And they had basically a 3/4 bleed card, and they had some nice angular designs at the bottom, which would have worked a lot better in terms of balancing that with the dark arena image, except for the fact that they put the statistics, the league year statistics, on the front of the card. And this is a bold kind of move that I've never really been a fan of, because it breaks up the continuity of the front of the card. And part of the reason they were able to get away with doing this is because since there was only 1 year of statistics, it was the close of the first year, they could get away with just saying, well, these are all the statistics. They didn't have to amass these statistics. But this was not a design approach that had been unique just to the WNBA. So it's an approach that they used in other sets that I just really don't like. On the back, because they don't have the statistics, it's giving more factoids about the player. And to me, if they had put the statistics on the back, it would have balanced the back of the card a lot better and freed up the front, and would have made the card overall a much stronger card design. But it's still a really good card design. And to consider this the low point in the first 2 years of the WNBA is not a knock on these cards. The set also came with 2 parallels. It came with Court Collection, it came with Arena Collection this time. Now the Court Collection follows pretty much the same format as before. The silver treatment on the front of the main card gets replaced this time by gold. And the gold is on both the Court and the Arena Collection cards, so they don't have a bronze foil treatment. But the gold treatment of all the detailing on this particular card makes the foil treatment on the card seem like a gold foil treatment across the whole thing, which it's not. And on the back of the cards, there's no difference. So I'm not going to show you the back of these cards because it doesn't matter. All 3 cards have the same back. Now the Arena Collection card, this is the one that really, really jumps out. And as much as I love the 1997 version, this 98 version is a more impressive creation because it has holographic stars sprinkled all throughout. And it's a really, really strong image. It comes across well, and it doesn't overpower the card. It actually works in the card in a fantastic way. And if you really want to see a lively card, you need to see the checklist version of that. That is just, it is a sea of spectacular. But these arena cards really work well across the entire set because every single card has a really good balance with what they came up with. So while the previous year was also well balanced, this had more liveliness but was less dominant. I'm not going to say one was better than the other. They were both great, both very different approaches. The set had 2 subsets, and one subset isn't really a subset, but here in 98 they actually included coaches. And this is a common thing in basketball cards, but the coaches weren't addressed in the previous year. So here you actually got to see the coaches in the set, which would have made more sense in the previous year as well. But this gave us the rare opportunity to actually see a Cheryl Miller card, because there are very, very, very few Cheryl Miller cards. They also have an official subset, which was the playoffs. So you got to see all the different progressive games of the playoffs. And then they closed out the set with a couple of checklists, of course. They also had 3 inserts, and the first insert set was Coast to Coast. And this basically kind of highlighted an achievement, an athletic performance by various players. The second one is the number ones, and again, all of these are foil on the front. The number ones are probably the best rookie cards I've seen. There's something about these cards that's really, really great. It's well balanced. It's got good color balance on it. The portraits are fantastic on these cards, and there's something very, very subtle and casual about the players. You feel like they're just kind of hanging out, which is kind of unusual for rookie cards. So I don't know why I like these cards so much, but across all the sports, I think that these are the rookie cards I like the most. They're just fantastic. But these are the first draft picks, the first true draft picks in the WNBA. So these cards are true draft picks, but not included in the set. They're done as a insert set, kind of a Fleer approach. And then the last insert set was Planet Pinnacle. And this is rookies and stars, and they're in kind of a portrait pose. This is an overly glossy card, and the mirror-like effect on the front can get a little bit overpowering, but overall still a really good card. Pinnacle did one other thing this particular year, and that was in conjunction with Kellogg's. Kellogg's put out a set of cards with both NBA and WNBA players. And the NBA cards were handled by Upper Deck, who had the contract, and then Pinnacle had the WNBA contract. So the first 2/3 of the set is the men, the last third is the women. And the card design is the same. It's just that the logo changes partway through. The cards came in two different forms. The first form was the gold version. And the gold version of these cards were sendaways. You sent away, got the whole complete 50 card set all in one shot, men and women. And this is the way that we typically see these cards. But it also came in another form. It also came in a silver form, which came in packets of 10. And so there are 5 packets of these, and they're mixed, men and women, in these packets. I'm not sure how these were distributed, whether they were sendaways or in a box. I haven't found that out yet, but that is the other way that these cards come. So those cards were the only other cards that Pinnacle made, because in 1998 they filed for bankruptcy. In fact, this WNBA set is one of the very few 1998 Pinnacle cards that were made. And Pinnacle didn't seem to have any clue that it was coming, because football, baseball, and hockey, they were already ramping up their Epic set to have multiple sets that would distribute out across. So it seemed to kind of catch them off guard, but it meant that for the WNBA, now they had to find a new suitor. So that's where 99 picks up in a later video. And for this video, this is kind of the close. But for the first 2 years of the WNBA, these were great cards. They handled it well. The cards were presented well. They were really fun to collect, and it was a fantastic kickoff with great enthusiasm. Basically died by 1999 because the card quality plummeted quite a bit, in my opinion. While Ultra still made good cards, overall there was something about the Pinnacle cards that really worked well for this particular league. So I'll be looking at the later sets and later videos, so stay tuned for that. If you have any more knowledge about things like the Kellogg set, I'd love to know more in the comments below. Tell me what you think about these cards, if you think that Pinnacle should have been doing more basketball cards. And I hope this video was informative. I hope that you enjoyed it and you'll hit the like button. If you did, I really hope that you'll check out other videos that I've done, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified. And thank you very much for watching.